Hi, and welcome to episode 5 of Brewed for Life with your host, me, Dan Brusha. This episode, we're going to kind of get into the life of what it's like to work in retail on the grocery store side of business. In some previous episodes, I had mentioned that I had worked in retail for a long time, and specifically, I worked in the grocery business, and I really, really enjoyed working in that business. It was my first job, and growing up in Brookfield, there were a couple of chain grocery stores. There was a Costco and a ShopRite, and at different times, I think there was like a Wallbounds or a Food Mart or whatever. But that's not where I started in one of those big chain stores. I actually started at a small little grocery store that had a package store attached to it. It was owned by this gentleman, Carl Bernanko, and he had owned this building for a long time. And for a while, he was the only real grocery store in business. So he had really developed a following and generations of families doing all their shopping there. And the store itself, it had everything you could possibly need: frozen food, pet food, dry goods, bread, chips, ice cream, produce. But the real driving force in the store was the meat department. When I started working there, I was 15 years old when I got my first job, and I was working part-time and doing what a typical 15-year-old does, which is bag groceries and fill shelves. And I did that all through high school, and I really, 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 really enjoyed working there because you have the same customers coming in and day out, and you really get to know the people that are shopping in your store. You get to know what they're looking for, you get to know what they like. As a 15-year-old, we got tips during the holidays and for carrying groceries out to their cars. I don't know. I kind of felt like it was like a rite of passage working in that store because you got to really know the people who have lived in town and the people who had moved to town and raised their kids, and their kids were there raising their kids. And it was really, really, really humbling. And, you kind of feel honored for being in a town like that where people feel so comfortable in the town, and they raise their kids there, and their kids love the atmosphere and everything that the town has to offer, that they want to live there and raise their kids too. I worked there till I think I was probably 23, so I worked there for 8 years, and in that time frame the store had changed hands. The original owner, Carl, had gotten sick and passed away, and he appreciated the fact that all of us that were there for several years, he appreciated that we had stuck around and we stayed through the times when he wasn't doing well. And when he sold the business to the owner after that, he had actually given all of us a percentage of what was left in the store's business account, and we all got a percentage of what he sold the store for. And as an 18-year-old kid or a 19-year-old kid at that time, like to come into $15,000, which was my portion of that, I paid off my car, I paid off a bunch of my bills. Like, it was a great opportunity, and I really, I don't know, I didn't know how to handle getting that much money in one lump sum, but I appreciated it nonetheless. And after that, this an Indian family had bought the building and bought the store, and I had an opportunity at that point to take over the meat department as an owner and as a separate business. But just not being mature enough, not being in a position in my life where I was thinking long term like that, I chose not to take that option. So I stayed there until I think I was probably about 25. Me and the new owner, we didn't get along. I was working with the new owner and the guy who took over the meat department. I was working 6 days a week from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, and I just wanted more from my life, and I really felt underappreciated. The guy that had taken over the meat department, he had some major drinking issues and drug issues, and I was constantly getting phone calls on my day off. Oh, so and so didn't show up. I need you to come in and open the store and blah blah blah. And I had just gotten to a point where I was like, honestly, fuck this guy. I'm the one doing all the legwork, all the orders. I'm doing all this stuff to help keep his business afloat. And I got zero appreciation for it. So one day I got that phone call and I decided to just say, no, I'm not coming in. Like, it's not my responsibility. I just work there. I'm not the owner. It's not my responsibility to continually cover for this guy. So I said, absolutely not. I'm not coming in. The owner, he called me and he was like, "Oh, you got to go in and you got to open the department and blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Absolutely not." So he had at that point the nerve to kind of say to me, "You're going to take off the next week because you're going to think about whether or not you want this job." And in my head, I was like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? I'm the one that shows up at 7 o'clock, gets this department running. He would stroll in at 8:30, leave at like 3. He only worked like 5 days a week, and I'm the one working 7 days a week, open to close to support your business, and you got the nerve to say some shit like that to me. So I was pissed, and I had some connections at one of the major chains in the area, and I made a phone call and had expressed some interest in moving on and chasing some other opportunities. And in one day I got a phone call from that store, and they were like, "Hey, we'd love to have you come in and interview." And I did, and they offered me a great opportunity to go and work for them and have an opportunity to grow and make some more money. And yeah, the small store I was getting paid cash under the table, but I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So I made a move and I went to go work for this company. And I got there, and I'd be lying if I said I wanted to get the hell out of there after a couple of months, because again, I'm scheduled 5 days a week. I was scheduled 11:30 to 7 every single night, and I was there to fill shelves and make sure that things were getting done. But every single day I'd come into work and the entire department would go on break, and then they'd come back and say, "Oh, you didn't do enough while we were gone," and it was a 15-minute break. They'd be gone for a half hour plus, and "Hey, can you come in at 10:30? Could you stay till 8 tonight?" And it seemed like the same situation over and over and over again from where I just left. I stuck it out and I stayed. And, I really, after I got through that point and I started cutting meat and, spending more time learning how to work within a larger chain retail environment, I decided that, I'm going to plant some roots here and I'm going to spend some time here. And I did. And I really, really enjoyed that time. But working in retail has its ups and downs. And, some of those things are not, I don't know if they're extremely obvious to the public or whatever, but like there's a culture within inside working in retail and grocery stores specifically that your business is not your business, and everybody wants to know your business and everybody wants to talk about your business. And if you try to hide your business, then the conversations start of, "Oh, yeah, they're too good to talk about, whatever, and what are they doing that's so secretive," and yada, 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 yada. It just becomes a nightmare. That's just the retail business. Everything's very gossipy. But, I stayed there for, oh, God, I think I worked for them for like 3 or 4 years, and then my oldest son was getting ready to get born, and I needed more money, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity for me to be able to make that extra money. So I left for 2 years and went to go work for another chain, and they offered me $2 more an hour, and I was working as a part-timer. I was working 6 days a week. So, I did that, and it was the same kind of stuff there. A little bit different, a little bit more laid back, with less of the pressure and the not necessarily responsibilities, but the expectations for what the company wanted you to have done in any given day. So I stayed there for 2 years, and my original the company that I had previously worked for had, was hounding me because I would go in and do some shopping and stuff, and they were hounding me to come back. I was like, all right, well, like, make me an offer, throw something at me to make me want to leave. And they did, and I left. And 20 years with that company, I had seen a lot of ups and downs, some high points, some low points, some positives, some negatives. That's really what I want this episode to kind of get into, is that last stretch of time with this company. And, they are absolutely there. They're a company that prides themselves on customer service and customer experience and expectations, and they try to do their best to outshine their competition. And I think early on when I was working for them, I think as a company, like, they were phenomenal at that. There was absolutely nobody better at the customer experience than they were. Like, they really wanted customer service to be their strong point. So with that said, like, there was always employees in an area where if a customer had a question, that customer could find an employee quickly, and that employee's job was to make sure that that customer's expectation was met. And if it wasn't met, then you suggested what they could do to change what it was that they were either looking to buy or looking to make, and suggested some other items, and customers really, really appreciated it. I loved that because where I started at in the small store, like, that's everything that your business was based on, which was creating a relationship with your customers and really developing that bond and that trust level where your customers shopped with you because they trusted you, because they knew about your family, you knew about theirs, and I really enjoyed that part of doing business. As time went on, like, that really changed within the company, and the expectation was still the same, but you can't provide the same level of service with less people. And people that were replacing other employees that had left didn't have the same drive. They didn't have the same self accountability and the same kind of personality and the same kind of expectations for themselves that the previous generation of employees had. And it made it tougher and tougher and tougher to do business. And it made tougher and tougher to be able to provide that same kind of experience for a customer. And unfortunately, it's not just this company's fault, because as the grocery business evolved, the accountability was removed solely from the employee, where it was their responsibility to make sure they showed up on work on time. It was their responsibility to make sure that they did their job 100% while they were there. And that shifted. And now it's the manager's fault that an employee doesn't show up on time. And it's a manager's fault that no matter how many times you train an employee, that the employee is still underperforming or not meeting expectations. And that part of business really, it just didn't sit well with me. There's got to be accountability for not just the manager to make sure that the training is there, but there's got to be accountability for the employee doing their side of it. And there's never just one-sided accountability, especially when it comes into business. Everybody has a role to play. Everybody has a job to do. You can't just hold one side of that responsible for getting those things done. Going back to the gossip side of business, there was a lot of things that went on, and I personally, I got involved in some of it, and I chose to start to remove myself from some of it. But it's hard because it's thrown in your face all day, every day. Everybody wants to talk about everybody else's business, and it's hard to remove yourself from that. So what I did is, as I progressed and as I was with this company longer, and I was a manager for almost the entire time that I returned back to this company, what I did is I started to discuss some of these issues and some of these things that were going on with my direct supervisor, which was the store manager, and it amazed me how many store managers that I had to deal with deflected from it. They didn't want to deal with it. If it wasn't, a huge problem. Nobody wanted to address it, and nobody wanted to handle it. And that part bothered me. And what it did is it started to develop into, Dan's the problem, and he keeps bringing up these things that need to be addressed, but maybe Dan's the problem. But the reality of it is that I'm the problem because I'm exposing things within the store that are having an impact on morale and productivity and just the daily nonsense that would go on. So I'm the problem for bringing it up, but nobody wants to fix it. So what actually ends up happening is it becomes like a sinkhole, and everything underneath the surface starts eroding until the surface collapses. And then there's never a, hey, I'm sorry that we didn't address these things sooner. I know you brought it to our attention. There's just, let's move them to another place so that they're not here to say, I told you so. And we're going to pretend that these things just kind of erupted and that it wasn't known for the whole time. And I don't know, maybe I'm a different person, but that's not how it's not how I would run a business. It's not the environment that I would want any of my people that work directly for me to have to deal with, nor is it a place that I would want to have to deal with. And I don't know how I did it for, 30 years total in retail. I don't know how I did it for so long. There's too much politics and too much of, I got to cover my own ass for my inability to do my job that goes on within that retail. There's a huge disconnect between, we have an open door policy and you can tell us about what's going on, and where that information goes. Because if that information exposes too much of a failure at store level or at the next level or whatever, it just gets filtered way too much, like the telephone game, before it gets to the person who can actually make a change, because everybody plays the I gotta protect my ass game. But at the end of the day, I am a person who, when I work for a company, I want to be loyal to them and I want to see that company succeed, and I want to be a part of that growth, and I want to be a part of, the change, and I want to be a part of where that company goes because of the efforts that I put in. And I always wanted my people that worked for me to kind of feel the same way. I always went to work with the thought process of, let my work be a representation of the kind of employee, the kind of worker that I am. And even if it was, and the example I used all the time was, I don't care if you're in the stall shoveling shit. When you get done shoveling and people see you working and they see what the result is of your job, and you see that you take pride in what you do, regardless of what that job is, and the end result is a representation of you, then doors will always open for you, and people will open their eyes and they will give you opportunities based on your work ethic and your results. And what I also found within retail is that it is not about the results. The results are whatever somebody wants your results to be. It is now about whose ass you can kiss the most, who can blow the most smoke and represent themselves in a manner that makes them look like they are the greatest candidate, when the reality is that they can't do their job. They rely heavily on others to do their job for them, and then they don't even give the credit where the credit's due. They assume all the credit and then get promoted and put in these positions to now manage a larger scale of people with less knowledge and less tools to be able to do the job. So once again, they rely heavily on others to do their job for them. But the problem with that is that when the people underneath them need to ask questions and need guidance on something, they don't have the knowledge or the expertise to be able to help them. So what they do is they either ask questions in return because they don't know the answer, and they're not even knowledgeable enough to be able to send you in a direction where you can find your answers. As a result of that, these people go through these trainings through all these multiple departments, and you are given the responsibility of now training somebody who's going to be your supervisor on how to do your job, which they should already have knowledge on how to be a manager. They might just need the little bit of nuances for each individual department. That part of how businesses are operating is absolutely having a negative impact on employee morale and where they think they can go within a company. You, as a manager, it is your responsibility to coach, motivate, and train your employee and help them succeed. Because the greatest accomplishment as a manager is to train somebody to do your job better than you can do it. You give them all of your tools, all of your insight, all of the things you've learned. You give them an opportunity to be able to apply all that stuff. And then you work together as a team to find a way to navigate issues. In order to do that, you have to be willing to, one, acknowledge that you make mistakes, and two, be willing to learn from those mistakes and work together as a unit to be better for it. So as you go through those processes, you as a manager, you hand these things and you teach these other employees to do these things so that they can take your job. So it gives you an opportunity to learn how to do the next step so that you can be promoted. Here's the kicker. In retail now, and I've been out of that side of retail for a little over a year. Here's the part they don't tell you is because promotions are no longer based on somebody's results and somebody's ability to do their job and their knowledge and their insight and their track record of being able to develop employees, because it is based on whose ass gets kissed the most, who you lie to the most without them having to look into it any further, who you can get to support your bullshit, and then you compound that with it's no longer about whether or not somebody can do the job. It's about trying to meet some standard of what the world thinks should be a diverse work group. What happens is you promote people who were inept department managers and you teach them how to be a store manager. Now, how do you get somebody who couldn't even manage anywhere from 8 to 10 employees, and now you're going to have them manage a store? They couldn't have an intelligent conversation about their numbers, about their profits, about their losses, about their inventory controls, about any of those things. But now you're going to ask them to have that same conversation about a store. So you're going from maybe a department that does a few $1 million a year, and now you're going to have to speak to a building that's doing hundreds of millions of dollars a year. What is the thought process there? Why are companies setting themselves up to fail based on the idea of I got somebody to support my bullshit, but my financials for my departments don't show the ability to be able to do this job? My ability to control inventory is the opposite of what your expectations are for somebody at the next level. What do you do then? So what you do is you explore other opportunities and you take your knowledge and your skills and you bring them into another avenue. And you hope that you learn to be better at what you do, and you be an advocate for yourself. And you bark loud about being successful. But you can't bark negatively about the other people, because then they look at you as you're a negative individual, you're upset that they got an opportunity and blah, 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 blah. Part of that might be true, but there's also some truth to saying that people that do that may have actually deserved an opportunity. They may have actually had better skills, and they may have actually been a better, candidate for a position than somebody else. But because they aren't exactly the mold that you're looking for, then they aren't even given an opportunity to be able to do things. And in my time working in retail, I have seen some people that were phenomenal department managers, had very little issues with employees within their departments. Departments presented themselves and their numbers were absolutely amazing, but never given an opportunity to get promoted. But people that were absolutely horrendous and always had employee issues, couldn't show up to work on time, couldn't meet their numbers, were always getting talked to about certain metrics within their financials, they were given an opportunity. And sometimes, and I hate to even say this because I am not a person that is sexist or racist or any of those things, but sometimes these people that were given opportunities when they weren't great at their current position were given those opportunities because of their race, because of their orientation, because of their gender. And yes, they should be given an opportunity for that position, but when you put people side by side and you start measuring the actual measurable things, as in financials and employee issues and performance and all the skill sets, all of those things, if they're apples and oranges instead of apples to apples, then maybe that candidate shouldn't be part of the list of people that you're being looked at for potential promotion. It's a tough thing to say, and it's a tough nut to chew when you're somebody who's looking at candidates for promotions, but that's the reality of it. When you put unskilled, weak players into positions and give them opportunities for promotions, when you push aside your group of candidates that are absolutely good candidates for a position, and then you promote the person who is the weakest, who has shown an inaptability to be able to do their daily tasks, and you promote them, what do you think that does to the culture of the people that have been waiting in line, that have proven themselves, that have the skill set, that deserve the opportunity? Creates a negative atmosphere. It allows them to go, this isn't the place for me anymore. And now you lose your talented help. You bring in people that want to play your games that don't show the ability or even half the skill set of the people you lost. And somehow you try to teeter your upside down triangle so that it doesn't fall over. That's good business. That's what they want you to believe is good business. That's not how it works. And that is absolutely why I decided to leave where I was. You can't put people in positions to open stores, to develop people, to develop up-and-coming employees. You can't put people in those positions and ask them to do these things without giving them the opportunity as well. People want to grow. People want to feel appreciated. People want to hear that they're doing a good job. They want to hear the negative stuff too, because the negative stuff helps them grow. But people deserve to have their path spelled out for them. They deserve to know where their course is, where their course goes. They deserve to know where their opportunities are. And if your manager is not helping you work on your opportunities, then you're going to be in a position where you are in a constant state all the time. You're not going to grow. You're not going to have promotion opportunities. They're going to hold you where they need you the most, and they're going to continue to promote their agenda and move people through and up and around you until that happens, until somebody speaks up and says, what about me? Now keep in mind, when you say what about me, that also is taken in as negative. You can't do what you're taught to do in those buildings, which is talk to human resources, because human resources isn't going to support you. They're going to make a note and they're going to look out for the business. Even though their position is actually called the employee advocate, they are not advocating for you. They are not helping you. They are not going to do what they sell you on as their job is, as what their job is supposed to be. Their job is to look out for the company and to dissolve any potential issues. And their job is to get rid of potential problems. That's what their job is. Their job is to support the store director in their agenda, and that's it. They don't give a shit whether you're happy, you're sad. They don't care if you sexually harass 1,500 people in the building. As long as you say, I don't remember doing that, I don't remember saying that, and it's not caught on camera or anything of those other things, then you are okay to have your job. That's the kind of stance that human resources takes, regardless of what the person on the receiving end feels. Retail is a crazy world, and it is not for everybody. And I honestly thought that I enjoyed selling and making my department look like nobody's ever shopped. And I enjoyed working with my teams. And as much as I enjoyed all that stuff, I never thought I would get to a point where I would just say, fuck this, I'm out. I'm not playing this game. I'm not sacrificing who I am as an individual to meet somebody else's needs. If you don't appreciate what I do day in and day out for you, and you can't take the time to say, hey, you're doing a great job. Hey, these are some opportunities. When you get a minute, let's sit down and talk about them, and let's develop a plan or whatever to help you work through these things and fix those opportunities. Nobody ever says that because they've already determined who the players are that they want to move forward. That's retail. I can't say that that's the way it is in every job, but that's my experience in retail. Take it for what it's worth. If you work in retail, let me know if you think, if you see these same things. I'm sure you do because it's retail. I've been out of it now for a year and I still hear the same nonsense. I see people getting overlooked and people that have proven that they deserve opportunities just excused and honestly disregarded and overworked and lied to. This is episode 5, my rant on the life as an individual who's worked in retail. Hit me up on Instagram at Brewed for Life Podcast and talk to you soon. Let me know what you think.